Are we pushing that all in?
Yep, we're getting going here. What do you wanted to look at?
Just saying, we could tweak that if you want.
Oh, yeah. Yep, we're getting going here.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Meowalicious. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Hey, we're just getting set up here on the stream. Just giving it a minute or two, and then we're gonna get going on an overview of UDB, Beam, and Geo. So we're just gonna get going. We are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, we're in different Instagram channels. We're also in the users group right now. So we'll get started here in 30 seconds or so.
Hey, while we're getting started, or while we're about to get started, we've already got some questions in Instagram, so we'll just hit some of those real quick. How do I slow down the music with the show? That's not currently available inside of UDB. It is on our list. Of course, you can slow down the drill animation by using the metronome widget, which we'll dive into here in a little bit, but not currently possible, but it's on our list.
Yo, we got a shout out to Goochland High School. That's where Josh and I went to high school. Our dad was our band director there. Actually, I'm gonna move this camera up. All right, work with me for a second here. And we're gonna zoom this thing in. Hold on, I'm working on it. There's Goochland High School right there. So thank you for the shout out, Goochland High School.
It is a real place. I know it sounds like from a Dr. Seuss story, but it's real. That's where we came from.
All right, let's get started. So we're a couple minutes in. If you're joining us right now, thank you so much. Whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or some of our support pages or users groups, really excited to be here. We did this same stream a couple of nights ago, and we wanted to share some of the similar things. So if you were at that stream, thank you for being there. This is going to take a similar format. We have a couple new things that we'll talk about, but we do want to reiterate a couple of points, which is Josh and I were talking a week ago, and we realized it has been quite a long time since we went live together on our pages. It's been such a wonderful journey as we've grown and the community has grown and our team has grown. And with these new apps and new services and all these redesigns, we thought it'd be cool to come on here and actually just kind of kick it old school and just talk about the apps and talk about the new stuff and talk about why we made certain decisions, how we came to certain conclusions, talk about some of the features, show you all of those things, and then give you all an opportunity to ask us questions about this. And it's been such a joy. So if we haven't formally met, my name is Luke. I'm one of the co-founders of UDB.
And I'm Josh, also one of the other co-founders of UDB. We are brothers, if you didn't know or haven't figured that out yet. And we come from a band family. Our dad was our band director in Goochland, which is in Virginia. You can look it up. It's a really beautiful county. And our two brothers are also master musicians and just incredible educators and people. So we come from a musical family, and yeah, so it's really excited to be here with you guys this morning.
So we're going to just get started. We're going to jump right into UDB, and then we'll talk about Beam, and then we'll move to Geo. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to just and take about 30 seconds and introduce you to what Arc is. So if you are using the apps right now and you've seen UDB powered by Arc or Beam powered by Arc or Geo powered by Arc, Arc is us. But what we've done is we've created a brand that allows a user to like log in with the same account into UDB, into Beam, into Geo, and we call that an ARC account. And so the reason we've done that is because as we've expanded over the years and as we've added more things in terms of apps, we wanted to make sure that you didn't have to create like 10 different logins for 10 different apps. We wanted to unify it. So we decided to unify that under the brand of Arc. And so when you create an Arc account, that Arc account gets you into UDB. That same account gets you into Beam. That same account gets you into Geo. And because in the past, you'd have a separate UDB account, you'd have a separate Beam account, and so on and so forth. So we wanted to make that simpler. And that's where, like, when you see the term ARC, that just means that that's kind of the connective tissue. The other cool thing about ARC is that it allows you to set up your ensemble or your groups once. And so in the previous versions of our apps, you would set up your marching band in UDB, and then you would actually go and set up that same group in Beam. So you'd have to do the same work twice. And then as we introduced Geo, we were like, we don't want you to have to do that 3 times and other things that we'll be, kind of releasing in the future. So Arc allows like you, if you're a director, an educator, you can set up your groups one single time, and those groups show up in UDB. The same groups show up in Beam. The same groups show up in Geo. And that way you set it up once, and then it's just there everywhere for you. So we know Arc is a new word, new brand that you're seeing. It's still us. We're still just the UDB guys, but that when you see Arc, it means that that's the connective tissue.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll start to hear more about ARC and what that means moving forward. It is short for the Arts Reimagined Collective, which really represents our love and our belief that the arts are like really the most important part of humanity. And we're just super pumped and like honored that like this whole journey started with UDB. We are band kids. We have multiple music degrees, right? We've taught at the high school level, the drum corps level, or at the college level, all of these things. So um, we are really excited about like what our team is doing and how that represents really the future of not only the activity, but really sort of the whole arts medium. So you'll start to see lots more about the Arts Reimagined Collective, which is ARC.
So we do see some questions coming in on Instagram. We're going to definitely get to those questions. We're going to kind of dive in, and then as those questions kind of fit in naturally, we'll answer some of those questions. So thank you for asking. If you're on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or anything like that, we will 100% get to those questions. But we're just going to dive in to the beginning of the UDB stuff. And so I'm going to take a look here. So this is the new home screen of UDB. And if you remember the old UDB, it was all vertical and the big buttons and stuff like that. So we've completely redesigned the interfaces to be really modern and to fit in with everything that you are, used to seeing in other apps. But so this is your list of drills. And one of the first changes that we made, we got this request all the time from directors, which was, hey, how do I preview the drill before the rest of my kids see it? So drill gets uploaded in the account in the previous version of UDB. It's just out to everybody. So what we did is we created something called the drill library. And the drill library is when the drill is uploaded from Piware, it goes into the drill library and it doesn't immediately get uploaded to all the students in the ensemble or the group, things like that. And so everything that I see here is available in the group, but if I click this plus button and I click assign from drill library, this is where I'm going to see a list of all of the drills that have been uploaded to my account. And anything that has a check mark, that is what's uploaded to that specific group. So when drill is uploaded, it by default just goes into this drill library. It does not show to the group, but if I want to bring something into the group, I'm just going to click that check mark and I'll click that assign button, and that assigns it into the group, and I see that in the group.
Can I share some? So one thing that directors have asked us about for years is like, hey, I've got our pregame file, I have our parade block, I have last year's show that I don't want to delete, but like the kids are opening up the wrong account or whatever it is. So this now allows for you to like sort of pick and choose what's visible and what's not to those students. In addition to what Luke said about, hey, I want to preview this, or I want to just share this with my staff group first, and then I want to share it with the full group, right? So you can already start to think about how this can be really helpful from an organizational standpoint. And you only have to add the initial drill one time. Right, so you tap the plus button, you add it to your library, and then once that drill is in the group, if it's updated, right, it's updated and it's already pushed automatically to that group. So you only have to do that the first time for each drill file.
And I want to just take a quick second to explain the way that the ARC kind of setup works. So we utilize terms. We have organization, subject, group, and subgroup. And so the organization, that's like your school. So since we got a shout out for Goochland High School, our organization, top level, that's Goochland High School. The subject is band. And so that's like when you join the band, you're just joining the subject of band. And then you get groups. Groups, that's where you're going to get your marching band, wind ensemble, jazz band, percussion ensemble. That's what you'll name all of your groups. And then the last layer is called a subgroup. And that's where you can organize members in any one of these groups. So, for example, in marching band, you have people who are section leaders, you have people who are drum majors. And then in wind ensemble, you may have a subgroup that's principal players or librarian, people who are responsible for the music. And so we allow you through that architecture, organization, subject, group, and subgroup to basically set up your entire program in the app in the same way that it's set up in real life, essentially. So when you upload to a group, it's going to upload just to that group. And like Josh said, so like I'm going to go over here and I can see all of here's my organization, that's ARC, and then I can see all of my groups here. So I could have a group just for staff. So any directors watching this, create a group just for your staff, and then that way you can upload drill right there. You can look at it. It's not released to anybody else. And then when when you want to release it to the rest of everybody in the marching band, just go over to the marching band group, and then you can assign that to the drill library. So that way you can view things before anyone else gets to view them. So let's jump into a drill. And here we are. We're in the brand new UDB, and we've gotten a lot of questions about this, about like, hey, what about this redesign? Like, how did you all make some of these decisions on the redesign? And the first thing that we wanted to kind of talk about is actually the actual like user interface here, and just introduce you to that. So the first thing that we kind of noticed when we were looking at this several years ago is that the football field, even if you zoom it all the way in, there's all this extra space on the side of the screen. So whether it's over here or over here, there's all this unused space. And we didn't really like that in the old version of the app. There's all this blank space, and it's like, hey, how can we make this more effective? A user interface for this. So we said, hey, let's make sure we give more information to everybody. So this starts with this click wheel or this control wheel. So you know that we can press plus and minus just like on the old version of the app, but check this out. Now we can just grab this control wheel and we can scrub through like this. And what's cool about when you do a wheel is that you can continuously move through it. So if you remember the old version of UDB, we had a little slider right here. It was pretty cool, but it would stop right there. So you couldn't keep going beyond the drill set. So if I go into count mode, just like we know how to get to count mode, I can actually just keep going through the drill, or I can go back and forth. This is super helpful when you're like learning drill and you're just taking a look at something and you want to see how something moves through time. You can do this and then you can keep going. So that's one of those limitations on the old version of the app that we wanted to kind of break through that limitation. And that's why we centralized around this control wheel, and it keeps everything within that thumb tap. It's actually closer than it was before. The other thing that you'll see up here is this is the info bar. This looks pretty much exactly like it did in the previous version of the app. I'm in as a director right now. And however, as a director, I didn't have all this information available to me. So we brought more here. So we've got the page, we've got the counts, the measures, and the title. Title, this comes from the Power production sheet. So if you want to put like letter A, letter B, something like that, you can have that right there in that title. And then new in the new version of UDB app, you can actually tap this bar as a director. You could not do this in the previous version, and now you can just scrub through the entire drill, go to a new drill set, reference the counts, anything like that. So right away, there's like 300% more information available to everybody on this layout.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that you'll see here in a minute when we switch over to the iPad, just so you can see what this looks like, right, is our focus was trying to maximize the amount of information that was available both to directors and to students. So, like if Luke zooms in on his phone as a director or staff member, right, and taps on a performer, you'll see how that info bar expands, and you see the same amount of information now that the students have. So we wanted that still to be like quickly accessible, and of course the info bar is still dynamic in that you can scroll up and down, but you'll see there's just more information available to you, and we tried to be like really intentional about that rather than just trying to squeeze more things into a smaller interface. So the other part about this too, right, that's brand new is that you'll notice that because we have the info bar, right, off to the side in one of our brand new widgets is a tap ID widget. So like when Luke tapped on a performer, you'll see that it switches to show you that performer's name if this was a real drill file, right? You'll see their picture, of course, if there's a real student assigned to it. And what's fun about this, if he taps away from that dot, it switches back to the widget that he was on, right? So the interface itself is far more dynamic than it used to be. So like, yeah, pull up any other widget for a second. Yeah. And then tap on a performer. Oops.
Sorry.
Right. And you'll see that it switches the widget according, right? So it only shows you that the performer name and picture when it's relevant, and it doesn't hide behind the coordinate information like it used to.
Let's talk about the widgets for a second. So one of the coolest parts about our experience over these last 10 years with the app is we are not lying. We have literally gotten tens of thousands of requests for features. Like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And from all over the world. So certainly we're based here in the United States, but we have amazing groups and people around the world, in Europe, in Japan, and South America, all over, that are using UDB, and they're saying, hey, can you do this? And so we needed to make sure that we could create an interface that would support feature growth for years and years to come. And that's what the widgets are about. So most of the features that people have shared with us over the year, they're just kind of micro experiences. Hey, I just want to toggle this. I want to be able to get to this faster. And so like, let's look at custom views, which is not a new feature, but in the previous version of UDB, you tap the little UDB icon and then you get a list of views. But on this widget, I can just one tap move between my views. So on this widget, I'm right here and I can move between those views, and I don't have to tap separate menus. Now, if I'm not someone who's moving through custom views all the time, maybe I'm turning on and off the Met, I'm just going to be on this metronome widget. So you can control the interface and make it dynamic to what you want. But anytime you also want to dive deeper, you can actually tap on the widget and it's going to bring you into what we call the quick settings. Quick settings allow you to actually change some settings without leaving the drill. One of the things that we wanted to solve in this new version of the app is, if you remember in the old version, you'd press the settings and it would take over the entire screen. So you'd change all the settings about the drill, but you could not see what was happening on the drill. So when we brought this interface in that gets rid of all that negative space, let's go, for example, to the metronome widget. When we tap that, look how beautiful these settings are. I can just grab a slider. I can choose a favorite metronome preset right here. I can change the sound. I can even add the count in. And I'm still in the drill. I don't need to leave the drill. I don't need to change the entire screen. I can just change all that right there. I can turn on that toggle and we're going. Of course, I click play when it's a hold. But anyway, so that's what these widgets are. So, and you can see we brought focus mode in for directors. So they can restrict access to the drill if there's an internet connection. So over time, you're going to see lots and lots of widgets developed by us that are a direct result of feature requests by you. And this is really important to us because on a phone, you only have but so much space. And we wanted to give you these small experiences. And the cool thing is like you can have this very tiny experience. Let's go to the metronome. You can go into some settings right here, and then you can even tap the settings icon and go into the full settings experience. So if you want to take over the full screen, cool. If you want to do just a little micro thing, cool. If you want to even smaller, cool. We give you complete control over the way that you want to work with UDB.
Yeah. Something we'll show you here in a second. You want to move into like field notes?
Yep.
Cool. So, one of the features, maybe since day one that we launched the app, was people wanted the ability to draw on a drill chart, right? Much like you would sort of in the old days. And so that's a feature that we've been really excited about creating ourselves. And we wanted to make sure that we were doing it in a way that was going to be reliable, but also like really impressive. And so what we've got set up here is Luke signed in as a director on his device. You want to pull up the multi-screen view? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'll show you what's possible here as far as like drawing on the screen and the kinds of things that you can leave for field notes. And then we want to show you how quickly that synchronizes and what that looks like from a director to a student.
Yeah. So real quick here, when we press this UDB button, we're going to have all of our new controls right here. So when we press it, that's how we're going to get home. That's how we're going to get to our notes. We can change our drill right there. We also have this new option called field notes. And we can tap that and it brings us into the field notes section where we can draw on the drill chart. Or one of the things that we really like is if you just press and hold on the screen, it brings up a little modal right here. And I'm just going to click draw. And I'm going to choose my personal layer right here. I'll talk about layers here in a quick second, but now I can just start drawing on the drill chart. I can draw anything I want, and it's so cool because it scales with the drill chart right here, and it attaches to the actual drill so you can see it. Now, I want to go back here and take a look at these layers because when we were developing this, we knew that we wanted everyone to be able to take a personal note that was just available to them. We also knew that we wanted a way for staff to communicate with each other. So maybe designers and staff to have a layer that only they can see. And then we wanted to be able to share layers to the rest of the band, essentially. So everyone gets a personal layer. And then we have shared layers. So if I wanted to create a new shared layer, you can see I choose a color for that. And the colors are specific to the layer. And that way you always know that, hey, green is guard and purple is percussion and red is brass. And so anytime you see multicolors on the field, you'll be able to identify what that note is. But then it's cool because you can say, hey, I only want staff and admin to be able to see this layer. And that way, no member is going to see that layer. Or I can say, hey, I want this, I want everyone to see this, and I want to lock the layer. And what that does is that means that no one can actually hide that layer. So if there are notes that you must have, like if you want everyone to see, then you would lock that layer, and it's gonna show for everybody. So yeah, here in the personal notes, we can take notes, but I'm going to go to this multi-view here. And I want to show you like how cool this is. So I'm going to go to this all layer and you can see that the note is in orange. And let's say I want to take a quick note and I just want to circle something for the battery. When I draw that, you see it immediately shows up on the other device. And so I can take another note and it's going to show up directly on that other device. So you can imagine in real time, maybe you're making some adjustments here and you're saying, hey, we need to do a new pathway. I want us to come out and around here, and that's how we're going to start this movement. That note immediately shows up for everyone else on the drill chart.
Yeah. So think about, just with some of the things that we just mentioned, right? Maybe you've got a layer that's just for directors and staff. So how could you use that? You're in rehearsal and this becomes a dynamic workspace for you to say, all right, I want you guys while we're going through rehearsal just to make notes about the sections that, need work next rehearsal. So it becomes like a rehearsal planning guide, or here's what we're seeing. I want you to highlight, right? I want you to draw, or I want you to type, or I want you to whatever. Highlight the things that are maybe catching your eye that we need to address. So you'll see like Luke is highlighting things right now, and that's showing up like essentially in real time on my device. So directors and staff layers becomes really, really powerful. But then also you could have things like student layers, right? And you could title the layer choreography and you could lock it because you want the students to always see that, right? So things like choreography, things like pictures, right? Like for example, one of the things that I was doing when I was teaching at the university level is we have certain ways that we would carry our instruments for pregame versus later in the show, right? Or later for halftime. So I wanted to be able to have quick references for the students, right? So this could be a video of maybe here's what pregame looked like last year that you want the students to be able to look at, right? So try to think really creatively about this, sort of how this dynamic workbook becomes for you and your students and how you can set up all of these different custom layers. And again, like Luke was saying, I mean, because this works so quickly, imagine just saying like, hey, everybody go get water, here's what I'm seeing, or hey, everybody in your spot, just take a look and see what I'm seeing from up here. This is happening, or can we dress this way, or make sure that we're facing this direction. Horns up on count 4, right? So this becomes, again, we keep using the word dynamic, but that's really what it is, right? So it becomes this really unique way to to keep track of the rehearsal, keep track of how you're planning for things, and you're sharing information all the time with the students.
We got a question on Instagram, and yeah, I just want to go ahead and answer. It says, "Why is UDB why is it so expensive?" Um, yeah, so I mean, we have to charge something. I mean, it's very expensive to do what we do, but I also want to put this in perspective. Um, so UDB costs $12, and when we look at that price, we cannot find anything else that is used in band that is $12, that is used more times than UDB. Like, so when we look at a uniform top, those go for between $70 to $100, and they're used maybe 12 times throughout the year. We look at shoes that are $50 to $70, and those are also used maybe 10 to 12 times throughout the year. We look at the meal that Friday night football game, maybe $10 from Chick-fil-A, something like that, $10, $12. Um, and so when we look at the price of UDB, we think it's actually maybe the most affordable thing that a program can actually purchase throughout the year. We've got some amazing stats and data around this. We actually outpace social media usage in the months of August and September. Our users are spending hundreds of thousands of hours a day using UDB. And the average session length, like we're seeing multiple hours a day from each user. So the point is like, cost is of course of relative, and if $12 feels expensive to you, like that's not for us to say that that's not expensive. But what we can say is, I don't know if there's anything else that you can buy for $12 that you use for the entire season, that you use in the morning, can use in the afternoon, you can use at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season for $12. Um, and the truth is, we've only raised our price one time in 10 years. So actually, while the costs of uniforms and shoes and props and electronics and other technology has literally doubled, in a lot of cases tripled, we have only added $2 to our price since 2016. So we're trying to do our part here. Like I said, it's not our place to decide whether $12 is expensive for you, but we think the value that we're delivering for $12 for an entire season is dramatically more than what you might spend $80 or $100 on, and then stop using after 12 uses.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those, who use it for multiple seasons throughout the year, it's a reminder that it's available for marching season, for indoor guard season, indoor percussion season. We have a ton of groups who use it for stage shows and for parade practice and all of those kinds of things. So, yeah, it's something that we've learned, about how to try to meet the community where they are, and we understand that every dollar is valuable. The other thing too that's important, that's worth knowing, is that you know one of the reasons that we're most proud about what we've done is because when there's an issue, you can call and you can talk to somebody. The support that we offer, the support that Pyware offers, those kinds of things, that doesn't happen from free software, or cheaper software. So for us to build an infrastructure around things that's building the safest, the most secure technology for teachers and students around the world, we've learned that it takes supporting it at a financial level. But we appreciate the question, and we're always mindful about how we can help save for programs, which is why we partner with groups like US Bands and DCI for the DCI housing discount and those kinds of things. And the last thing that I'll say, we've collected really interesting data around this over the years, but the hidden costs that somebody else was paying for copying sheet music, copying drill, that's actually really significant, and it outpaces UDB and Beam almost 2 to 1. So it's really significant. And our charge to the community is to say, hey, talk to your administration about using the latest in technology in the classroom. Here's a way that, again, probably nothing else in the school costs $12, per student, which is really exciting. And hey, you now don't have to pay for paper copies. You don't have to pay for toner. You don't have to pay for the rental, on the band room photocopier, those kinds of things. So really appreciate the question. We'll always be really honest and transparent about it. But that's why the pricing is where it is.
Yep. And then Timothy, you had asked like when excuse requests are going to be out, and I see that Rachel, our director of marketing, is answering some questions. I do want to just say that feature is actually complete and it's done. So we actually plan to push that like very, very soon. I just want to like tell you some of the realities. Like Apple and Google have had way longer review times than normal. Just some insider baseball, like these are things that we don't control and we have to kind of work around them. So like actually a month ago, like Apple took like 21 days to review Beam, when generally it takes them 1 day. So there are just things that happen in the background that we don't control. I know that's not the answer necessarily that you want, but just want to let you know that like excuse request is done. It's been tested. We're trying to push it out. We're just kind of waiting on the Apple and Google thing to kind of finalize some of that stuff, and then we push it out. So sorry to keep you waiting on that, but we've got an incredible team that's like working on this basically around the clock and things like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's move into just a couple of other little features here on UDB. So we talked about the field notes and wanted to look at just very briefly the custom views and things like that, because there's a brand new custom view interface. And you can see that I'm using the widget to just tap between these custom views, but I'm actually going to jump into that custom view editor, and I can do that simply by just tapping the widget and then tapping that little gear icon. And this is where I have all of my views and things like that. And I can click on each one of these, and I'm just going to go into UDB default. And you can see now I can actually like see my drill file when I'm editing custom view. In the previous version of UDB, you made all the changes and you have to go back to the drill file and then see if you liked them. But now you can do all this right here. So I can go into show hide sections. I can like literally hide everybody. It can show everybody. I can isolate just certain sections by tapping this little eye icon. And then I want to take you over to groups. Now this is a demo account, so it isn't going to display perfectly, but now we show all of the groups that you've set up. So say you have your wind ensemble, your jazz band, your concert band, your percussion ensemble. You can actually individually show and hide those specific groups in the drill. So say during the day you're doing some work with just the wind ensemble, you could hide everybody on the field except the wind ensemble. Once again, this is a demo group, so not everybody is like signed into these dots. But now I'm looking at the field of just people who are in the wind ensemble. So this is one of those benefits of kind of the ARC ecosystem is once you've set it up, even if you set up these groups in Beam, they show up in UDB. If you set it up in Geo, it shows up in UDB. So it's very cool because they all talk to each other and you can get a real-time look at this.
And think about other ways that you can have these groups organized, right? So that you could have like, here's just my ninth graders, my 10th graders, or my sophomores, whatever it might be, in college. Or, hey, I want a view that shows just the props, right? Because of course, props are so much more involved than they have been. And if you've got them moving around the field, I want to have a view that allows for us just to focus on that. Or like here in Texas, right, where there's dance teams, that come out and do the Friday night performance. I want to have a view that shows just them so that, they can look at that and they don't necessarily need to know where the flutes are, right? So the whole thing with the groups, right? We want for that groups and subgroups to be sort of like infinitely customizable. So we're excited to hear how you guys use all of that creatively.
And one of the features we introduced last year was the listening zones, and we've brought that into this app. And listening zones are very cool because what they allow you to do is provide the members on the field with kind of a cone of listening. Like, hey, if I'm in this green area, I'm allowed to listen. And if I'm not, then I'm not. I should probably be watching the drum major. So I want to go into that real quick. So I'm going to tap this UDB button, and to get into the settings, I can just tap that little settings, and I'm going to go into listening zones. And when I manage a listening zone, what you do is you select a tempo source dot. So in this case, we've selected snare 3. Let's say they're the center snare, and we set a page range and a tempo. And this is all mathematically calculated based on the speed of sound and the way that sound travels at different tempos. So if the tempo's fast, that cone of listening is actually smaller. If it's slower, the cone of listening is actually larger. So you set this tempo, and then you can even choose the direction that the performer is facing. But let's say the snare drums are facing forward right now. And so when I look at this as a performer, if I'm inside of this green area, I'm safe to listen back. I will play in time if I'm listening back. If I'm in this yellow area, I should be a little cautious. I can maybe listen, but I probably need to be looking at the hands as well from the drum major. And if I'm outside of this cone of listening, it is a scientific fact that if I listen back to the drums as a performer over here and I play with them, the sound that comes to the audience will be out of time just because of the way that sound travels. Of course, there's nuance to this, and the best decisions are always made by the educator standing in front of the ensemble. But this gives you a really cool reference and your students a really cool reference to say, like, hey, even when I'm learning drill for the first time, I got to make sure I'm holding my instrument. I got to get my eyes on the drum major. I got to find a way. Which drum major am I going to look at during this drill set?
Yeah. Just to jump to another question that was asked about auto update for Androids. That is on our list. We're going to try to knock that out as quickly as we can. We don't have a current timeline on that. But of course, make sure that auto updates are turned on just on your on the App Store, because we're going to be pushing out tons of stuff. We've got some updates that are coming out this week. We've actually just pushed out a big update for Android this past week. So make sure that auto updates are just turned on for your apps in general. And it's our goal to try to keep everything as up to date as quickly as possible. And of course, we'll be pushing out information both on the UDB users group, the Beam users group, and also sharing things via email with the directors.
So auto update is here in the settings, so you can turn that on iOS. And it's actually already complete on Android and will be coming out soon. But if you're updating or you need to update a file, in your drill thing, it'll actually show you they'll give you a little icon to download or update right there. All of these are already on the device, but that's when you would see any sort of upload or update icon, things like that. So there are many more things inside of UDB. We're not going to go over all of them because we want to get to Beam, but we just wanted to kind of give you an overview of ARC and the interface, and how we made some of these decisions, and just get you familiar with this new control wheel, the new buttons. And we're going to transition over to Beam, which
Actually, sorry,
oh, yeah.
we'll show one more thing. Just
Yeah.
just for quick reference for students, can we switch over to the camera here?
Yeah.
So for students who are changing dots,
Oh, yeah.
changing dots either regularly or hey, they've opened up the wrong dot by accident, super quick for them to change over that dot. Again, under the UDB button, you'll see something that says My Dot. So they just tap on that, choose the new performer, go back into the drill, done. All right. So slightly different format than previous years, quicker to get access to it. And again, just all right here, it doesn't take over the screen, at least initially, right? And then My Dot, choose the performer, back into the drill. And what's great about that, especially in the pro version of the app, that cast list is updated immediately for the directors. So that just is a huge, huge time saver for directors. And now when they go through and tap on dots, they'll see that new name and picture pop up with that new student.
Yeah. So let's move over to Beam now, because we've also brought Beam into the Arc ecosystem. And what's cool about that is here in UDB, I can just tap the little UDB button and I can actually just jump over to Beam right there. So when I tap that Beam button, it opened up Beam app. And you'll notice that the home screen of Beam looks a lot like the home screen of UDB. So we wanted the experiences to be similar as you go into UDB, as you go into Beam, as you go into Geo. Um, and that way you feel very familiar everywhere that you're going. But let's take a look here. We're looking at the library for Beam, and I want to take just a quick second and explain this. We actually developed Beam to be like your library in real life. So if you go into the band room and you go into the band library where all the music is stored, the way that it works is, hey, you need to get, let's say, a copy of the Star Spangled Banner for your wind ensemble. You open up the library, you make some copies of the Star Spangled Banner, and you distribute it to the wind ensemble. And then the next class, you got the concert band. You also need to give them a copy of the Star Spangled Banner. You make some more copies, you send it out to them. But now you have two kind of copies of the Star Spangled Banner, one that's in the wind ensemble, one that's in the concert band, but you still have that main piece that's in your band library, and that kind of stays there all the time, ready kind of to distribute out to your different classes. That's the way Beam works. So you have a Beam library with all of your songs and your collections and set lists, and then you decide which songs go to which groups. So right now I'm in the Arc marching band, and if I wanted to add something into the Arc marching band, I would go assign existing song, and I'm going to see a list of every piece of music I have in my band library. That's like me pulling out that band library, and I say, hey, I need to add this piece in to the marching band, and boom, there we go. It's added into the marching band group. That does not remove it from the library. It doesn't affect any other group. And I could go into, let's say, back here, and I can go into another group. I'm just going to go into the staff group, and you can see I have a completely different set of music available in this group, but I can always click Assign Song. And look, I have the same exact library that I just had available to me, but let's bring in a certain piece. And so in this group, this music is available. And if I go back into, let's say, the marching band group, I can see all the music that's available there. But if I delete something from a group, it doesn't delete it from my library. It just removes it from the group, and I always have a copy of that in my library. So we wanted the digital experience to feel just like the real life experience. And that way you have full control over that.
Yeah, because this was a question about UDB and the UDB and Geo interfaces work the same. If you're looking for something that's new and it's not showing up for some reason, you can just pull down on the screen to swipe, and you'll see it'll do the normal sort of phone gesture of look to refresh. So that works on Geo, that works on UDB, that works on Beam. Cool. So let's actually dive into. You want to dive into a piece
Yeah.
now? Cool. So we've got Beam opened up here.
Sorry about that.
There we go. And of course, like once you get into a piece, right, it looks similar sort of initially. So I'm just going to jump into Esprit de Corps. And of course, right, Beam still looks beautiful, right? The music still scales beautifully, regardless of what phone screen you're on. You can still tap, you can still swipe, those kinds of things to navigate pages. You'll notice, though, a couple of things that are brand new, which we're really excited about. The annotation experience on Beam has been completely reworked, and it actually mirrors what we saw on UDB. So again, to get to the annotation experience, right, you just tap on the music, right, and then the annotation bar comes down. You'll notice that I can choose if I want to annotate here. You also have the ability to put this on the top or the bottom of the screen, whichever's your preference. So I'm going to go into the annotation mode, and you'll see that this looks quite a bit more advanced in a lot of ways, right? Just because it's so much more customizable. So we have all of these different types of pin types, highlighter types, those kinds of things, right, that you can access. And if you want to edit them, all you have to do is just simply tap on it a second time. You can adjust the intensity, right, or the opacity. You can adjust the stroke size. You can adjust the color, right, or also the pin tip size. So all of that's available to you here, right? And what's great is all of the things that we were talking about in UDB, right, are available here. So if I want to create a personal note, I have that on the personal layer. I can go here and say, this is what I'm focusing on up to the first repeat. Or if I want to share something with the ensemble, I can now tap on this and I have all of these layers that are available to me, right? So if I want to share this fully with the group, I tap on global and I might change the color of this and I can say this is what we are going to focus on tutti, right, as an ensemble. So again, super quick to jump back and forth between global and personal notes, right? And just like the quickness that you saw in UDB, right, where you scribble it or you draw it, right, it now shows up instantly in Beam. Previously in Beam, you had to draw, tap the tool to save it again, wait for it to upload on the receiving device. You would then have to tap and then you would have to wait for that to refresh. So we're going to show you actually here. I'm going to jump over to, again, personal notes, which you won't see show up on Luke's device, right? Now I want to create a global note and I'm going to say, this is what we're working on for the full ensemble. All right. Here's what we're focusing on cornets, right? So imagine that experience in the band classroom, the choir classroom, the orchestra classroom, right? Where I can update solfege, I can update IPA, I can have a layer for those things specifically, right? What's really cool too about these new annotations is the ability for us to remove these annotations now is super easy, right? So I can just lasso those and tap delete. Of course, I can erase those kinds of things. And you'll notice that because I'm on the global layer, when I selected those, only the global notes were selected. If I want to jump over to the personal layer, right, and remove those things, I can do that, tap delete. You'll notice that when I draw something, right, so I'm going to draw, maybe I want this to be the shaping here. If I wanted to quickly copy and paste that, right, all I have to do now is just select that. And you'll see I have a couple of different settings under here. I've been using the trash can icon up to this point. You'll see there's like this little copy paste icon. It does exactly what you think it should do. Now I can just move that wherever I want. All right, so much faster from an annotation standpoint. Now let's say that maybe you drew that on the wrong layer, right? Okay, well, I put these on my personal layer, but I really want those to be on the global layer. I can just simply tap on this, right? And I can say, I want this to go to my global layer, right? And then once that's on my global layer, it's available to all the students, right? So I might have been for the past 5 minutes making markings as a personal layer. Oh, whoops, I messed that up. I can just select them, move the layer, and it shows up for the students. So again, the entire annotation experience has been reworked literally from the ground up. So imagine this in the marching band setting where you're going to put a breath mark in. You're going to change the shaping for this based on the staging, or in the orchestra, hey, I'm going to update the bowings here, or in the choir, hey, here's how I want this vowel sound, to end here at the very end of the phrase, or this consonant at the end of the phrase, right? So the annotation thing, which was already powerful, is now so much more robust, so much quicker, so much more reliable. So, really excited to see how people take this and run with it. Again, especially with the layers. I want to show you just very quickly how to create a custom layer. So you'll see if I tap up here, I have, of course, global, personal. I've already created a director and staff layer. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm just going to call it, let me pull up the keyboard. Practice. And I want this to be available and visible to everybody in the group. I also want to lock it, right? So remember, when we lock a layer, that means that the members, the people who are not administrators, they can't hide that layer, right? So if I've got a practice layer, I've created it. Now I can, inside of my music, I can go through and say, okay, this is how I want chunk number one. This is playing test number two, and this is playing test number three, right? And the students now have access to exactly what your expectations are. And it's just on that practice layer, right? And again, if you haven't locked it, then they can hide it or they can turn it back on. So get really creative with this, right? Take it and run with it. And we'd love for you to share with us the ideas of like how you're using these things creatively, because that's really, really exciting to us. The last thing that I'll share with you that's brand new in this new version of Beam is the way that changing parts is accessed. So I've got a band piece up here just because there's more parts attached to it rather than like a choral octavo. So I'm going to go to full score up here. You'll see what you see here at the top of the screen. So now if I wanted to jump to the flute part, right? So it's even quicker to move between those two things here. So changing parts, quickly done there. We do have a full menu of things that are going to be coming from this. And of course, we're going to be adding back in the functionality of live mode here, which is probably one of the most popular features in Beam. So stay tuned. There's a ton more updates that are coming soon.
Cool. So once again, Beam is in that Arc ecosystem, so it's built to look a lot like UDB. And one thing that we haven't looked at, just real quick, and we're going to jump over to Geo, but here in the settings look like this in UDB. They also look like it in Beam. Same thing in Geo. But some cool things about the settings are, um, I can assure you that many thousands of directors have asked us to resend their licenses and codes and stuff over the years. You can now just access that here. So you can just see all the licenses right here for your entire ensemble or your organization. You can actually jump in and you can see who has, any of their codes activated and things like that. And you can actually activate or, write in real time. You can activate someone's license there right there for them. So if they don't even have the code, you can just boom, click activate, and they're going. This is also where you're going to manage all of your subjects and your groups. So I can see all the groups here. I can easily add a brand new group, and then I can say, hey, this group doesn't need UDB, but it needs Beam, and you know what? It actually needs Geo as well. So we give you granular control over what is accessible in each one of those groups. So it's very simple. It takes 5 seconds to create a brand new group. That's good for staff. This is where, in Beam, you're going to find your music library. And then we actually keep your songs for 60 days after you delete them. So this is kind of a form of backup for you that's built in. So if you accidentally delete something, you've got 60 days to come back and restore it back into your library. And then this is where you're going to see things like your codes. So you can see all those member codes, the staff codes. You can even get those little QR codes for people to scan, get into the group. It's all here for you. So don't need to go through all of that, but just wanted to let you know down here at the bottom right of all of the apps settings, you're going to see a very similar look and feel in UDB, in Beam, and Geo as well. So let's jump over to Geo for just the last few minutes here. And just as a quick intro to this, Geo came about because we created calendar and attendance. And actually, we have a quick question back to Beam. So I'm sorry but we got a quick question about Beam, so we'll answer that, and then we'll come back to Geo.
Yeah, so what's up, Carolina Band, Jay Jacobs and company? Love you guys. So question about if you mark something on the score, right, does that transfer to the students' parts? Not yet. That is on our list of things to sort out. As you can imagine, there's lots of variables in doing that and doing that perfectly, which is how we try to do things. So you're right. It would just be tap over to the student's part and then make that annotation. Now, with smart access, right, which we're going to be pushing out an update here soon, you can say, hey, I want for maybe my principal players to be able to make shared or global annotations, or I want for, one person per part. So one first trumpet, one second trumpet, one third trumpet. So then that way in rehearsal settings, you can say, hey, please put a breath mark here. And you want them to put it there, and it's going to show up globally for everybody who else is looking at that part. So that's the way that most groups are handling that right now. But it is something that's a deep interest of ours to figure out how you can go from score to the individual part. And again, there's so many variables to doing that correctly, but that's very much on our wish list. So stay tuned. Great question. We're excited about figuring that out too.
Yeah. So back to Geo, we introduced calendar and attendance inside of UDB app in 2019. And this was born out of our own experiences taking attendance in marching band, which was awful because we were dealing with hundreds of people and we were trying to by hand, or we were asking section leaders or who's here, who's not here. And it honestly is just a mess every single day. Even with the system, it was a mess because there was still so much manual work that had went into collecting things, getting it into a system, all that kind of stuff. So we introduced it inside of UDB. And honestly, one of the first and most frequent questions we got was like, well, my PIC kids don't need UDB. So can they take attendance? You know, it was like, okay. So we knew long term, I mean, 10 years ago, that these experiences would become dedicated experiences. That way they can be really excellent experiences, and then you only need to get what you need to get. So that's where Geo was born from, is bringing a great calendar and attendance system. Geo stands for Group Event Organizer, and bringing that into a singular place and letting those speak to UDB, letting Geo speak to Beam, and that way anybody who needs to take attendance, they can just download Geo, regardless of whether they're a musician, a color guard performer, or whatever the case is.
Well, and also, right, we have, as we've had choirs and orchestras, right,
Hmm.
come into our ecosystem, which is awesome, right, through Beam. They said, can we, use attendance? And of course, it doesn't make sense for them to have UDB as well. So that's why Geo is really sort of this unique connector piece that regardless of what type of ensemble you're in, right, Geo can connect to those things. And think about the granularity that each ensemble has, right? So in a marching band, you might have drumline meets over here, color guard meets over here, section leaders meet here, and then the prop crew meets over here, right? On a public schedule, parents just need to know marching band is from 3:30 to 5:30, right? But Geo understands who's in what grade, what instrument you play, what class you're part of, or group or subgroup, and those kinds of things. And then the same thing, how that applies into the choir or the orchestra space. Here's my principal players, right? So one time, as soon as you make that one group or that subgroup, right, that transfers over between these, between each app, and it just gives you so much more power so that Geo actually becomes your single source of truth, right? It becomes the nucleus of the information. And we had a great question about this yesterday on the users group. Hey, can this sync with calendars like Google or Parent Square or those kinds of things? This can publish to those. So then that way, because you're using Geo probably 3, 4, 5 times a day, right? And those are something you probably set up at the beginning of the semester. So this is really built to become the nucleus and sort of the motor for your entire calendar and attendance ecosystem.
And I want to address the Google Calendar stuff right away. We actually used to integrate with Google Calendar. And so that way you could like import your calendar into the old version of UDB. And just gonna say it how it was. It was not easy to do, and it was a really rough experience because Google changes what they do all the time in the background. They change their APIs. They do not communicate with developers. We like Google and all that, but Google's a massive, massive, massive company, and we are not. And they don't tell any of us when they're going to change the way something works, the way something displays, the kind of information they're sending us. And we just kind of learned that, like, if we want our stuff to work all the time, then we can't rely on Google because they change their stuff all the time and they don't tell us about it. So the calls that we'd get and people like, hey, this is broken, like we would learn about some of those stuff in real time because Google just changed something overnight. So that's why we decided to make our own thing. And then you can publish that to Google. You can send that to Google. And there'll be lots of ways that we communicate with Google in the future and other calendars, but just want to let you know, like, that's really why we don't integrate directly with Google and import all their stuff because it's kind of a mess. They know it, all the developers know it, and we just don't think you all deserve an experience like that. So, introducing Geo. This is your group event organizer, and this is a beautiful calendar experience. So I'm looking at this kind of split view right here, and I'm looking through the months, and I can see the days and the different events. I can kind of swipe this up and go through the entire day, and kind of move through and see what's going on. Now, if I tap into an event, it feels just like any calendar you've used, with the exception of the stuff that's specific to Geo. So first things first, I can see, of course, all the information up here, but then I can see anyone who's checked in. So if this event is live or it was in the past, so I can go to a previous event, for example, and go to this event called test. Oh, that's a closed one here. So I'll jump back up into these rehearsal, but I would be able to get a real look at the attendance record. And then, like Josh mentioned, here are all the locations. So inside of the locations, I can see all three areas. If we start a rehearsal, maybe somewhere on the football field, some in the band hall, maybe some are out in the parking lot, I can have three separate locations. I can see the check-in window and then all the groups and stuff. So the best way to look at this is actually create an event together here. So I'm going to click that plus button, and this is how you create an event. Now, the event is kind of like your traditional event, or you can create a roll call, which is basically like, hey, who's here? Or maybe you're out traveling, during a band competition day, or, you're out doing, choir, thing, and you want to just use here. That's what you use roll call for. But let's jump into the event. And first thing, I can just choose an event name, and then I get to choose whether this is a group calendar or it lives on the subject calendar. So if I put it on the group calendar, it would be, for example, just available to the group. So maybe it's just available to the show choir. If I put it at the subject level, anybody who's in the subject, like anyone who's in the choir subject, is going to see it. So this allows you to choose what the visibility range is of that. So let's keep it at the subject right now. I can choose, of course, the time and the parameters, the repeat, all that kind of stuff. And then this is where Geo really starts to shine. We can require check-in, and we can even require it for staff now. So on the previous version, you didn't have that kind of control. But we're going to say, yes, there's going to be check-in, and let's choose our locations. So first things first, I'm going to choose this first location. I know there's a little football field right up the road from me. And let's say we're having part of our rehearsal starts there. Let's say that the color guard starts on the field. And then we've got the battery, the percussion. They're going to start in the parking lot. I'm going to click add additional location, and I'm going to say they're going to start right over here, and I'll apply that to the event. And then all of the winds, they're going to start somewhere else. They're going to be over here for their warm up. I can apply that to the event. So now I've got three separate check-in zones, and they're all different sizes. So I can change the range of the size. And when students check in, or staff, they have to be in one of those three bubbles to check in. So I'll click done. Those locations are added to the event. And then I get to choose the invitees. So I can invite entire groups of people. I can tap in, and I can actually get into a little bit deeper. We're in a demo account, so we don't have tons of users in here, but I can invite people by subgroups, or I can invite the entire group and things like that right here. So I just simply type them, click done, and they're invited in. And then we've got these visible to public or invitees. So like Josh mentioned, we can actually share to Google. So you can get a public share link for this calendar, and then it just publishes into your Google Calendar, or really any other calendar. And this is where you decide whether that is available to that public link or invitees only. So if it's invitees only, that's not going to show on that public calendar. But if it's something where you want the whole community to know about, you can make it public. Um, and then the last little things, we've got attributes. So we've got some default attributes built in. So if you want to define something as a rehearsal, performance, fundraising, you can set up any attributes that you want. But this is a good way for you to filter. We know throughout the year, you're going to have hundreds of events. Maybe you're having rehearsals, performances, you're having fundraisers, you're having get-together, sectional parties, all that kind of stuff. You can create all those attributes and filter by them. We'll show you that in a second. And then we allow you to alert anybody in the ensemble. So you can say, hey, 15 minutes before, I'm going to send out a push notification, and it's going to say this event is starting.
Which like that's probably one of the biggest feature requests that we've had as it relates to attendance. Is like, oh, this is awesome. I just need to help my kids remember to check in. So that'll take care of that. So imagine just setting this up. You set up that recurrent event that sets up the notifications. Boom, it's really easy. The students just look at it. As soon as you tap on that notification, it takes you right into Geo. They check in, done.
Yeah, and then here when I'm looking in this main calendar view, I've got a lot of different ways I can look at it. I'm looking at the 1 day view right now. If I wanted to, I could go to a 3 day view and it's going to put multiple days out here. I can even look at the full week or the month or things like that. So there's a lot of different ways for you to integrate and look at this calendar. And then you can actually just filter calendars. So if I want to look at just one single group worth of events, I can do that, or I can look at all of them. Or we were just talking about attributes. I could say, hey, look, I only want to see anything that's marked as a rehearsal. I can do that right there. So I can just filter that when I close it down. It's if an event has the attribute of rehearsal, it'll show it to me. If it doesn't, it won't show it to me. And you can see here, I've got this little indication that there's a filter here. And I can always come in, I can click reset. And that's going to reset me back basically to my default, things like that. So we don't need to go through every single one of these features, but the spirit is that you've got like 8,000% more control and ability inside of Geo than you ever did inside of UDB. And it talks to Beam and it talks to UDB. So as we know, when we are looking over at UDB here, if I'm on one of these widgets, I could select an event if I was, in the right ensemble here, and I could display the attendance record right here inside of UDB because they're talking to each other. So that's one of the cool benefits of Arc is all of these things being integrated with each other.
Yeah, let me just add one thing that we haven't touched on here as we close. You'll notice that like on the UDB or the Beam home screen, you'll see something that says Overview, right? And right now, there's nothing that's published on there. That's where you're going to see things like, oh, here's my upcoming calendar events. Here's the music that you last practiced. Here's the last drill that you opened up. Do you want to open that again? Right? So we know that there's nothing there right now, but that's where this is going to be this really dynamic feed, right, that connects all of UDB to Geo and all of Beam to Geo. So that's where that stuff will be instantly accessible. You want to talk just very briefly about like when you use Geo, what the students need to, like they need to download Geo, and then one of the biggest requests are excuse requests, which I know Timothy was asking about earlier. So just talk maybe for 30 seconds about the Geo setup. And
Yeah, so basically anyone you want to take attendance or anything like that, like be a part of that attendance, they download Geo. And if they've already created a UDB account or a Beam account, their Arc account, they just sign in. So they don't have to create a new account. They just sign in with their Arc account and they've got Geo. And then they can see the calendar, they can check in there, and that's all it really takes for them to get up and running inside of Geo. The cool news is that like inside of UDB, you can actually check into Geo. Inside of Beam, you can also check into Geo, and that's what Josh was mentioning on the overview screen. So many cases you'll never actually have to go into Geo, but when you really need to dive deep into that, into the calendar, into the attendance, that's when you'd open that Geo app. So it is a separate download, takes 5 seconds. You just click sign in with Arc, you're all set to go. The last thing we'll take a look at here is the attendance record. So we were looking at the calendar right here, but we can go look at the attendance record and we can sort by events or participants. So if we just tap into any sort of event, we're going to see a list of people who were invited to that event. We'll see that overall record right here. And if we need to change somebody's attendance record, maybe they didn't check in, maybe they didn't have a phone, maybe they just something happened. You can just tap on them and you can say, yep, there you are. Now you are present. We can see that it's updated and we can see all of that record right there. I can export this event out and bring it to my computer and import it into whatever I need to do. Or I can go by participant. So I can go look and I can look at Jeff Young right here and I can see all of the events that he's been invited to. I can see he's only been present 3 times. Jeff,
we got to talk about that.
we got to talk about that, Jeff. And yeah, we can see his record and we can even export just Jeff's record right here. We can filter, by events, by last 30 days, other different attributes. So you've got like a ton of control here to just find what you need. And then as always, you can just jump into anything and you can say, hey, I'm tweaking your record right here. Um, and yes, you were, tardy, but that's an excused tardy. But I want to remember that it was an excused tardy. So that's why we have those excused things. So excuse requests are coming to Geo. We mentioned this earlier in the question. We actually have completed that. There's just some waiting that we're doing on the Google and the Apple side of things as they continue to review some of this stuff. It's a little frustrating to us too, but promise it's coming out. It's right around the corner. We actually have builds of it. It's really cool. We're just kind of waiting for Apple and Google to finish up the process on some of that stuff. So anyway, we want to kind of finish out here. And we just want to thank you all for joining the live stream. This has been such a huge labor of love for Josh and I, but also our entire team. For those of you who have known us for a long time, we are very proud to have been to know all of you, but we're even more proud that there's actually a whole nother team working with us now. 10 years ago, kind of was me and Josh. And now we've got an incredible team. We have dozens of people who are working on these products, dozens of people who care deeply and are passionate about the arts and supporting the arts. And they are working the nights and the weekends, and they are working all hours of the day at this time of year to make this stuff great. And we know when little bugs pop up or little things pop up, it's frustrating, or you're like, hey, when is this going to happen? Just reach out to us. We've got a great chat team. We've got a great team on the phones. Hey, and look, if you have our numbers, shoot us a text too. We pass that along to our team, and we can tell you that anytime something comes in, we're like, okay, we got to fix this. Let's get this ironed out. And we're not perfect. We never will be, but I'm not sure there's anyone else who's gonna operate with the band kid spirit like we do. Like we just try and we try again and we try again and we try again and we work really, really hard at this. So we're so thankful to work with all of you. We're so thankful that you put your trust in us, and we just have to thank you and our entire team for bringing these amazing things to life.
Yeah. In closing, if you're a director and you're not part of like our UDB users group on Facebook, it's an awesome community of people who are on there helping each other. Also, our team's very active on there. We've also got an incredible Beam users group, and we have tons more updates that are coming out regularly. So again, a reminder to make sure that auto updates are turned on for your apps. Stay closely or pay close attention to emails that come from us. We're going to try to like make sure that we're sharing information about those bug fixes, new features, those kinds of things. And most importantly, stay in touch with us. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't. Break it, we'll fix it. And the reason why we are where we are is because we've had an incredible 16 years worth of people who have been sharing their feedback and their ideas and their love, and we've been trying to reciprocate that and give it back to the community. So again, in closing, thank you so much for being here with us. Thanks for being on this journey with us. We know it is drill time for a lot of high schools, so wishing you guys the best of luck. We hope you really enjoy the features. We hope this video was helpful for you guys, and we're really excited for you to see where it's heading after this. So thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. Have a good Sunday, and you'll see a lot more of us soon. Stay in touch. Bye.